Hello everyone. Hi there. How are you all? Oh good, there's a few of you here. Oh, you're all waiting for me. I'm just going to hopefully not make you dizzy. I'm just going to adjust my camera just slightly. Because it's not very much on the screen, is it? So bear with me 2 ticks. I've been fiddling around with this all morning. Oh. There we are. Basically, we want to be on the screen, don't we? I need you to be able to see me. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, how are we all? Can we all hear me okay? Oh, hi Cheryl. That's lovely to have you here. Not spoken with you for ages. Okay, let's see. Are we quite straight? Oh no, we're not very straight, are we? Oh no, I think we're fine. I think we're good. Right, let me just check that everyone can hear me fine before we continue. Oh, great. Thank you, Kathy. Did I see, Kathy, that you say you got me on the big screen? Well, all the more reason for me to make sure I'm lined up then, isn't it? Okay, there we are. I think I'm happy with that now. All good. Okay, perfect. Oh, hi, Bonnie. How are you? Hi, Sharon. Who else do we have? Hi, Deborah. And, oh, hello, Mum. How are you? And Natalia is, oh, hi, Natalia. How are you? And Valerie and Jill and Helen. Hi, Helen. Oh, you was first in today, Helen. Top of the list. Okie dokie, let's get going then, shall we? Right, today I've decided I'm using the Floribunda petal envelope and the Rambling Wood Grain Rose purely because they are new to me and I haven't used them before. So hopefully that's a good enough reason for you all. Yeah, these are new to me. I think I picked them up just, I can't remember if it's just before or just after Christmas actually. It might have even been in one of Lisa's Facebook live sales or something like that. I can't remember when, but they're new to me, so I thought it'd be a really nice opportunity for me to have a play and share with you what I do with them. So I'm actually using them both today. I've had a little play. I've used a couple of other dyes as well in the meantime now, and I know a lot of you will have had these, and I think you have possibly been using these anyway, so it could be that you're more experienced with them. So I've had a little think and see if I could actually come up with a little something just a little bit different and a little in a different way for you to use them. So you can see the list on the side of everything else that I've used today. So I'm using the embossing folder and the layering stencils for each of these sets. So the Rambling Wood Grain Rose is a 5x7 inch set, so it's the 5x7 inch embossing folder, and obviously the stencils correspond to that. But the Floribunda petal envelope is an A6. Now you'll notice that when I listed this up here that I've put the Floribunda in brackets because when I searched on Lisa's website the other day for these, I've put in petal envelope and the layering stencils come up, but the embossing folder didn't, and I think that's because you need to put Floribunda petal envelope in to find the embossing folder. So in case you were wondering about that. So alongside these, I'm using the nested scalloped plain circles. Now obviously all of this is sort of entirely your choice. This is how what I'm using to adapt the card that I'm making today. So that's a really nice useful nested set. I'm also using the new nested labels, the twisted rectangles, which I believe I did use last week. So I'm using that in a slightly different way today. I'm using one of the smaller die, so it's going to make only a small appearance, but I think are really useful. And also I've chosen to go with these sentiments today because they fitted sort of the theme. Obviously if you are going on to make this, any dies, anything that sort of fits, but I really like these stamped sentiments because also they have the die that cuts them out as well, which is perfect. Excuse me. So that's everything that I'm using today. I should pop them there a second. Right, I've got a little mock-up of what I'm doing now. What I'm going to be making for you now, I'm going to change the colours of. So although the Rambling Rose set, as I've just mentioned, is a 5 by 7 inch, I'm actually going to cut this down into a circle, and I think this works really, really well. And I'm using a square card blank, but as I say, what I'm making today can easily be adapted to different shaped nesting die set, or you can use as is. You don't need to cut down the background at all. But I've also I'm using the envelope on this. Now I'll show you that little trick that I'll say. I just wanted to think of something a little bit different. To say, I know a lot of you using this before, but what I thought with this envelope, wouldn't it be fun to actually make it into a little usable envelope? So that's what I've done, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll be stenciling this and showing you how I actually put this together. Actually, if you look at that as well, you can actually set that like that, and you can put yourself a little hidden message in there. Or the other thing I was thinking of, you can actually cut this in half, not cut it, fold this in half and put another little card in there, so you can put a little hidden message in, which I thought was a really nice thing to do. So that's what my aim is today. I'm going to use different colours to what I'm used here. So these are the colours I'm using. You'll see also that I've listed those on the side. The colours that I've used to stencil this one here, I've just swapped the I'll just put them away. Actually, I swapped the pinks for Pina Colada, and I used a little bit of gold on there. So let me see if I can just show you. I've actually layered gold on top of the Pina Colada, and for the envelope here I used Pina Colada again for the yellow, but I've also used, oh, what's it called, peacock painted eggshell, sorry. My mind went blank then. So painted eggshell is the grey or the bluey grey that I've used on the envelope. So I'm going to go for a slightly different stance on this one here, so I'm not stenciling the same thing again, same colours again. So that's what my aim is for today's card. So let's get going because we've got quite a bit of stenciling to do. Hi, where are I? Let's have a see. Check that everyone's here. Okie dokie. Oh, Kate, you treat yourself to the twisted rectangles. Watching lights is lethal. Well, the chances are that you already have what I'm using today, pretty much, Katie. So yeah, I've gone back in the inventory a little bit. Now, perhaps from next week onwards, there may be some new things coming up. You know, I'm not going to say too much. But yeah, I think it's nice to be able to show you items that we've had in the collection for a long time. We all have different ways of using things, different ideas at different times. So yeah, it's not always about new stuff, but although the new stuff is fun, and it's nice to incorporate it into our old favourites as well, isn't it? So let's get going. Right, I'm going to start off stenciling the envelopes. I'm just going to move that slide off of there. If I remember, I will pop that up again at the end. So we're going to start off with the petal envelopes. So there's quite a few stencils in this one actually, but you whiz through them pretty quick. Let's get myself organised. So this set we have 8 stencils, and we will want to stencil this twice. Now the first time I'm going to stencil it, I'm going to stencil properly. I want to stencil all of the stencils, the whole design as is. But the second time that I stencil it, I will be taking a little bit of a shortcut just to make it a little bit quicker. Right, so I've just set myself up here. I have all my inks, and I have these containers actually that I keep all my inks, my brushes into. Now burnt ochre doesn't seem to have a lot of brushes. Looks like I need to buy myself a set for that, but I label them all, so I have one in front of me for each and every one of my colours that you see here. So if you hear things clonking, they're actually in front of the microphone. So I try to be quiet. So you can see this is how I manage to store everything, and I keep the blending brushes and the stencil brushes all in one go. These are metal, so they're actually really easy to clean. I'm not too fussed about the ink and things that get inside. And then these are from a well-known Swedish shop, and all I do at the end when I tidy up is just hook those back up onto the storage unit behind me. So that's how I keep myself organised, because I would have things everywhere otherwise. I'm just going to turn that card this way round because I'll be able to stencil twice onto this. Right, to stencil the envelope to start with, I am going to go with burnt ochre. The idea that I want is a craft colour envelope. Now this is quite a bold colour to start with, so I'm just working this in through the stencil just gently to start with, and just getting to grips with the colour and just getting familiar with how that colour moves off the stencil brush onto the paper. And that when I stencil, I've said it probably most times, and I think Lisa says it as well, the first layer that you put on, excuse me, go gentle. You can always build up the colour afterwards if you want to, but go gentle on this first one because we have a lot of colour to build up on top of this. This is only our first of 8 stencils after all. But also what it does, just by going light, it just gives you that feel of the intensity of the colour, how the colour sort of moves from the pad to the brush to the paper. And you do need to sort of get back into the swing of it each time you stencil. I mean, different days you have different strengths, so you're stenciling depending on how much of a rush you're in, or if your mind's wandering and you're thinking about other stuff. You know, you just need to sort of settle back into the stenciling again. So I'm just building that up slowly. So what I'm after really is a craft sort of colour on this envelopes, and that's built up really nicely. And I'm just making sure that just at the top area here, it's just that little bit darker. So this is where the flowers are going to be overhanging, so we're going to have a little bit of a shadow there. We don't need to worry about me coming off the edge here because obviously we've got a die cut, so we're actually going to die cut this image out afterwards. So now we can move on. So now we have the inside of the envelope, and for this I'm going to go a little bit lighter. I'm just going to come in with the straw hat, so it'd be a 2-tone envelope. Now straw hat is very peach, and if you look at the lid, which let me just move that in, it's a very pale colour. So contrary to what I've just said, because this is such a pale colour, and I don't think I cleaned my stencil properly. No, maybe I didn't. You can afford to come in with a lot more ink on this one. Now, what I will say, I've just changed brush. Yeah, I didn't clean my stencil properly from when I stenciled this first time. So this colour now is going to look a little bit grayer than the straw hat, sort of the peachiness and the neutralness of the straw hat, which isn't ideal, but it doesn't actually look too bad, to be honest with you. The colour is still coming through. So that's the inside of the envelope. Okay, so now we have our flowers, and I'm just going to give that a wipe. I thought I cleaned these stencils. Clearly not. There we are, giving that a wipe. So now I can come in with the antique pink, which I'm going to start with the blending brush to put that base colour down, like so. I'm not going to make sure that I've got a nice even spread of colour there. I think with flowers you can get away with not doing that, and I think it gives a nice rustic look when you do have that sort of mix of colour. I really like the way that that sits on there. The colours are looking really, really pretty. So now we can come in with, I've done a terrible job cleaning these today, dear me. Okay, so now we have stencil number 4, and this is where we can put the detail in on the I don't think that belongs in there. So where we can put the detail in onto the flowers. Now this is where I will want the colour to come to just be that a little bit darker, because obviously we want to pick up that detail from the stencil here. So I've come in with a stencil brush because I can pick up more ink and I can really get into all of those smaller details, but working really quickly, the ink goes down really quick, as you can see. Now just for a little bit of highlight in there, what I'm going to do is just come in with Rustic Coral. So I'm going to come in with a stencil brush, pick up a tiny bit of ink and just blot most of it off onto the stencil material around it. And I'm just going to just tip into some areas of the flowers, and that's just going to give a little bit of shading and a little bit of a two-tone effect. Now I want to keep the delicate antique pink colour, but I do also want to just have a little bit of a highlight, because flowers aren't just one flat colour, are they? So that's done the job for me there. So I don't know if you can see, I'm not sure if my other camera's set up for you to be able to see the two-tone colour there, but I'll show you that in a little bit. So I used Rustic Coral on top of antique pink for that. So now we have stencil 5, and this is the foliage. Now I'm coming back to my trusted Woodland Moss. Now this is such a diverse colour. It really is. It can look a vintagey colour because it's got that olive nature to it. It can span all seasons, and it pairs really well with other greens if you wanted to sort of change up the foliage. If you was stenciling a bouquet, for example, and you have different types of foliage, it works really well with the margarita green. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. Now this layer, I'm just going to go in a lot heavier, just to pick out the fact and just sort of show the fact that there are a couple of layers of foliage. Okay. And now we have the centres of the flowers. So I'm going to come in, where's it going? I'm going to come in with a Rustic Coral for this because I do want them to pop. Yellow might be a nice idea as well, particularly for roses, but I'm going to stick with my pink theme and make sure that really stands out like so. Then the last stencil that we have is stencil number 8, and this is the twigs and for the roses there. So I'm going to come in with tree bark, which is a lovely brown. It can go as dark as you need it to, but you can still keep it quite subtle, obviously depending on the amount of ink that you put down. So I'm going quite quick with this because I do want to stencil this for a second time. There we are. So we have our envelope, which is a really nice vintage look to it there, doesn't it? And I really like the fact that that does look quite sort of craft cardy. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring my stencils back over. I'm going to turn round my piece of card and I'm going to go again. So back to stencil number 1. Yes, now what I want to do this time, this second piece that I'm now stenciling is going to sit behind what I've just stenciled. So there's only certain elements of this that is actually going to be visible. Now, you'll have the time to stencil this for a second time and do it as properly as you do the first. It's not essential, and you'll see why in a second, which is why I'm going to cut some corners with you. So all I'm doing is just putting the colour down just so as I can see the image and where the image is set in. What I'm interested in stenciling this second time round is the top half, or from the envelope. What do you call that? The top half of the envelope, this triangle area. That's the only area really that I'm interested in stenciling. So this time round, you'll see here that I've done the inside of the envelope with the straw hat. This time I'm going to do it with the burnt ochre. So it's going to look a bit more craft cardy. I think it just sits better when we put the whole look together. So all I'm worried about really is anything that is going to be sitting in this top triangle. What I will do, I will come in with a little bit of straw hat and just fade that into the bottom there, just so there's going to be a little bit of continuity from this image to this image here. But that really is only going to be a small amount. So we come in with stencil number 3. Again, this is the base work of all the flowers. So I'm going to come in with the antique pink. But really, all again I'm interested in is the flowers that are going to be sitting in this triangle section. So I really don't need to stencil all the rest of this. So I'll just make sure I sort of tip into the top of that just to make sure everything is covered. Now, I think possibly if I was making this myself and I didn't have you watching, I would probably stencil this properly for myself and then put the image together afterwards. Probably for my peace of mind, that would be a better way of doing it. But, you know, just to be a bit quicker for you today, I am only really stenciling this top section. But once everything's put together, you really won't know the difference, and I'm able to get through this quite quick. So I'm back onto stencil number 5 already. So this is the foliage, and I'm coming back in with the Woodland Moss green. So putting that first layer down, and then the second layer of the foliage I'm going to stick with the Woodland Moss as I did before, but just come in that little bit heavier. Now if you're stenciling excuse me, if you're stenciling 2 images that you want to match up and sit side by side, it's as best as you can, probably best to sort of make them look as similar as possible. So it's not entirely essential, because the person you're giving the card to, if you are making this for someone, they're not going to know your intentions. So therefore they're not going to notice little details like that, but I know that you will as a maker. So that's the centre of the flowers again. So you can see how this comes together really quite quickly. And back onto the stencil number 8. Where's my, there it is. And I can put in the stems just like so. But again, I only need to worry about those top ones there. So that's, oh, let's put your comments back on there. Okie dokie. Hello, Wilma from Canada. It's lovely to have you here. I don't think I've seen your name before. So welcome. Nice to have you visit for the first time, I think. Okie dokie. Been trying to get me on. Hi, Jean. Been trying to get you on Facebook. We'll have to watch the beginning later. Oh, not to worry, Jean. Oh, you can see me on YouTube by the looks of it, though, which is good. Okay, so we have our 2 images stenciled there. So what we need to do now is find our, what have I done with it? Well, we don't need to find, I need to find the die cut so I can actually die cut both of these images. So it's so easy to line these up, and I'm going to cut this main one out first, like so, and I'm just going to get myself a little bit of tape just to keep that in place. So if you bear with me just a second. Okay, back again. So I've die cut those 2 envelopes. Now I've just realised actually I didn't actually emboss this one that I have here, and I'm just having a little think. If you actually embossed this envelope, it may actually hinder the fact that you can actually slip something into there. So I think what I might do, I might just leave that for this time. I'll emboss the background obviously, or maybe I can just emboss the front. What I'll do, we'll get this constructed and then I'll have a little think. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring in my trimmer. Now you could use your large scissors for this. As you know, I'm a fan of using my large scissors, but what we want to do, excuse me, is to, can you see that line there? There's actually a line. Let me see if my camera is set up. Then I can come in close. Yeah, I should be able to do that. Let's focus. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap camera. There we are. There we are. It's much better, this camera, isn't it? Well, it's good for close-ups. So this is the image here. So what I want to do now, bringing my trimmer in again, or you can use a craft knife and ruler or your scissors. You want to cut along this line here, which is where the natural fold of that envelope would be. Can you see? There's actually a line that Lisa has demarked, so that you're naturally stenciling that anyway. So what we want to do is just line that up either on your trimmer or, as I say, with your scissors. Line that up along where that cut is going to be, and you're going to snip away or cut away the top of what you stenciled. Now that can actually be the hardest part, but it is all definitely worth it in the end. So you can see now that we have our two areas there. So what we now want to do when we layer these 2 together, and that's why it's important to stencil the same colours on this one that's behind. So when we actually put this back together, to all intents and purposes, it still looks like the completed image. Now, my reluctance to emboss this would mean that I would alter the size of this top bit here and just make it that little bit smaller, so it might not sit as nice and flush with this back area here. I could emboss the 2, but as I say, I think it would make it a little bit tricky to actually slide that little message in. So that's why I don't think at this stage I will emboss that, although it would look beautiful, wouldn't it, to actually bring out those details. But to now attach these 2 together, we need to turn over this top part, which obviously we need to make sure we remember which side is the top, because we don't want to put glue along there. And then using your fine nozzle glue, of which we have new ones from Lisa, again, I really must order some, and we just put that really thin layer of glue and just trace all the way round 3 sides, but not the top side, obviously. Okay, let's pop that in there. And then we attach these two back together again. Then we can leave that to one side and just allow that glue to set. And there we are, we have our little secret envelope that can sit on the front of our card. Just take that little bit of tape off there. There we go. Right, so we can leave that sitting to one side, and then we can get on stenciling our next image. So this is the excuse me, got that cough, it's still annoying me. Okay, so we can go on to the Rambling Wood Grain Rose. That's not easy to say very quickly. Okay, so again we have our stencils for this. We have a lot. Again, we have 8 stencils here. Really nice one to stencil this is. And I don't know if you've noticed with Lisa stenciling now, she's really up in her game with each release that is coming out. These stencils here, we've actually, well, not the stencils, but I'll show you the embossing folder. We actually have detail in the background, which is so pretty. We don't stencil that, so it stays subtle in the background, which I think is just genius. But we can stencil and give colour and character to the roses, the rambling roses. So I'm going to stick with the same colour theme. I think that's just a really nice way to go with the what we've already stenciled on the envelope. So let's get going. Stencil number 1 is the background to the roses. So we have the chance, we have a lot of area to cover here, so I'm coming in with my blending brush because I can put a lot of ink down quite quickly with this. And then what I'll do, I'll go in afterwards if I feel the need, just with a little bit of extra detail. So I use, or the way that I would tackle this is each of these apertures as a separate being, and what I would generally do, or what I'm generally doing with my blending brush, is using each one and just going around the outside to start with. That gives you the darker shading around the outside and slightly lighter in the middle. It's not essential to do that, but I think it's a nice way to put a lot of ink down quickly. It's just a natural reaction when I stencil to go round and round and round, because that gives you a really nice blend. I do swap occasionally when the need arises, and I always tell you when I would use a different type of technique, but generally you will always see me going in circular motions. What I'm wanting to do is just tip into the edge of the apertures there, just to make sure that round the outside, you can see here, is just that little bit darker. I think it's just a really nice technique, a really nice sort of way to blend without worrying about, you know, the vast expanse of the aperture there. So it just gives us that sort of nice outline is the word that I'm looking for. I couldn't think of it then. So again, I'm staying still quite light, and you can see all the different blends here. It's not a smooth blend, but again, that's the look that I want. A lot of that excuse me is oh dear, a lot of this will be covered with the detail of the flowers. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm sticking with my blending brush, picking up a lot more ink this time. Again, going round and round in circles and putting a lot more colour down this time. And you'll find that if you were to go round and round, you know, blend in circles like this, you get a natural highlight, I suppose, on the image that you're stenciling, because you'll have your way of doing things. You'll have your certain pressure that you stencil at, and you will get an area that will be darker than others, and I think that gives you that nice ombre blend look. Now, before I continue, I'm just going to come into these smaller ones with a smaller brush and make sure that I've got the colour into those. And I'm just going to use my blending brush and just, now this is an example where I'm not going in circular motions. I'm actually stroking the ink from the top into the tops of those flowers there. So the tops of these flowers are going to appear hopefully darker. Now, antique pink is one of those really subtle colours that you can't always necessarily see the amount of ink and that blend or that shadow that you're putting in until you take that stencil away. But it is going, you know, it's working. So you can see there that we do have, just see the tops of these flowers is slightly darker, and that gives you the rambling rose look, as if it's, you know, coming and hanging over the door frame, which I think is a lovely look. So this stencil number 3, I'm going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to put the majority of the ink down with the stencil blending brush. I think if I were doing this on my own, I would take the time. That came away because it's stuck to my fingers then. If I had the time and I was blending and creating this on my own, I would possibly use these stencil brushes, the white ones, to do this and take my time over it. I really enjoy this blending. But it's not to say that these blending brushes don't do the job, because they absolutely do. And as you can see, I'm able to get that ink down really quite quickly. So before I continue, I'm just going to do exactly the same as I did with the first flowers. I'm going to put an extra little layer just at the top of the flowers with the antique pink, just to give them that little bit of shadow. And I think what I might do, just to tie in this background with the envelope here that has some of the rustic coral onto it, I'm just going to do exactly the same again, but with the rustic coral. I'm not going to go mad and take off the majority of the ink onto the stencil material, and just onto this layer of flowers, I'm just going to add that extra colour just to the top of them again. I don't want to do it to the other layer, just on these ones. That is just going to intensify that little bit of that ombre blending that I think looks so nice, and it just ties in this background with the foreground that we're going to add a little bit later on. Now there are a couple of leaves on here, really easy to miss. And if you were to do them in the colour of the roses, no one would be none the wiser. But I did spot them, so I'm going to do them in green. Okay, so you can see that some of these flowers actually do have that darker bit of shading on. It just adds to sort of the dimension of the blending, I think. So now we have our foliage, and again there's quite a lot, so I'm just going to sort of whiz through this quite quick. So these are the leaves. So Woodland Moss, again, you can't go wrong with this. I really can't. And actually blending this with the blending brush, which is the black ones, and the stencil brushes are the white ones, blending this with the blending brush, it gives it a softer look, and almost it looks like a different colour, you see. So although using the same colour, you can really got that control. So you can see that building up. Let's have a see. What's that? Lorraine now, she has reviewed the glue pens for me. Definitely 5. What's that? Definitely 5. How have I ever managed without them? Oh, are they that good, Lorraine? Right. I think they definitely are on my list. I like the fact that you can put a lot of glue in them as well. This little one I had, I've say I've only had this since last summer, I think, which is great. But I've just used the wrong colour. There we go. Yeah, Lisa's, they hold so much glue, don't they? So you won't need to be refilling them constantly, which I think is great. I think it might be a good idea to buy them with another bottle of glue, wouldn't it? I'll have to check to see if it's on in stock. Actually, I'm looking forward to seeing the new website on Thursday. Did you see the message? The website's launching Thursday, isn't it? The 16th at 12 p.m. So I'm sure they'll be sitting there with sort of nervous hands or with bated breath, because there'll be almost the equivalent of a stampede come 12 o'clock with everybody logging on to look at the new website. But I'm so excited. It's going to be so much easier to use, and I think there's just going to be so many more features, and it's going to be so much more organized than it has been before. Yeah, so everybody's looking forward to it. There's some new features. I think the blog is going to be on there as well, so I'd imagine that there'll be a blog post or two to welcome us in as well. So yeah, lots of changes, lots of things happening, and it's not even the end of January yet, is it? Yeah, it's going to be a fun year. Okay, so I'm stenciling that through, and I'm just going to come in with a stencil brush and just darken up some of these leaves here. The blending brush can only go so far for me, which is perfect, and then the stencil brush just comes in and just darkens everything up, because it does pick up a lot more ink. Actually, there's slightly different bristles, just as easy to work with. Okay, let's have a see. Hi Marion, how are you? Oh, hi Tina. Did I see Tina there? Oh, lovely to have you here as well, Tina. How are you? And who? Oh, Bonnie, you think you need burnt ochre? Do you know what, Bonnie? Burnt ochre is one of those colours that you wouldn't necessarily buy it first from all the colours, you know, when you've got such pretty colours like all the pinks and the blues and whatever, but it is a real lovely colour to have in the background, and it works so well for the twigs and the stems as well. It blends brilliantly with the tree bark as well. I actually used it quite a lot. I use it a lot for the robin stencils as well, the burnt ochre. I think you'll be... if you do get it, I think you'll be surprised at how much you'll use it. I say it's perfect for this, for the craft card look. You can turn it orange depending on the other colours that you put with it, but it also has that brownie effect as well. It's quite a chameleon sort of colour, I'd say. Definitely a useful colour to have. So we're getting there. So we're on to our last stencil then. You can see how this image is really building up. So the last stencil is all the small detail for the leaves. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in with a stencil brush and just put in a lot of ink, because I'm layering the woodland moss over woodland moss. So I really want to make sure that I put this on a really sort of intensely, just so as that layers really nicely on top, which it will do. If you can, you definitely can stencil tone on tone. It works really nicely, but only if you haven't put on the previous layers on quite so heavy. If you found that you've put on the previous layers a bit heavy and this top layer of green isn't showing quite so much, then come in with a grey. Come in with a cobblestones or a tree bark would work really nicely. Any of the greys, you've got dolphin grey, you've got inclement weather, would work really nicely on top of that as well. So there's lots of colours, so that all blend really well together. So if one colour doesn't work for you, there will always be another colour that does. So you can see how that image has come together. It's really lovely, really, really detailed. Let me just swap you onto the other camera there, just so as you can see that detail in there. It's a lovely image, as is. Now I am going to cut it down, which seems a bit scandalous. If you were making this, then perhaps you choose not to, but it really is a lovely detailed image, and you can see all the blending that we've got into there, the different tones of the pinks. So swap you over. I can move my ultimate out the way now. Let's put that over there. Okay, so as I've said, what I want to do is cut this down and use my nested circles for this. I'm going to do this and cut it down first before I emboss it, so I don't lose all of that detail. So I'm not going to do that one at all. I'm going to take in the second largest die, so it's the stitch die. I'm not using the scalloped one, that will be the decorative edge around the outside, and then I can fussy cut anywhere I choose. Basically, you have a little bit of scope there, so I think I'm going to go a little bit higher because it's going to leave this area here. So I'm just going to die cut that now. Okay, so brought plates with me. That's okay. Okay, so we've die cut that piece out, and all, you know, straight away it takes on a completely different look, doesn't it? Just as pretty, I think. I'm going to pop those in there, and then I'm going to find the embossing folder. So now I can actually emboss this. If I were to emboss first, it would have actually squashed that detail down, which would have been fine. I could have re-embossed again afterwards, but it would just add an extra step. But what I can do now, if I just take a little bit of time, I can match up the design in the embossing folder. Because I chose the right size die cut there, I know that it's going to stay sitting within my embossing folder, so I'm not going to have any extra edges embossed. So that's perfect. So I'm just lining that up. There we are, to the leaves. I can close the embossing folder down. I'll just run that through the machine. Okey-doke. I'm just going to pop the lids on there. Actually, it's worth noting with these inks, I've had these inks from pretty much launch. A lot of these ones are release, that's release 1, are release 2 and 3. I've done a lot of stamping and a lot of stenciling with you, haven't I? Especially if you know and you tune into me each week. And I keep the lids off for an hour pretty much, don't I? I haven't re-inked any of those. I actually haven't got re-inkers for them yet, because I did go and check. And the ink pads are still really, really juicy. So if anyone's new to us, new to using the inks, and if you wondered how long they would last, I do one. How many lives would I do a week? I do perhaps 4, 5, 6, perhaps 6 or 7 lives a month. Okay, I keep the lids off of them for at least an hour on those, and I've been doing lives with you with these probably for a good couple of years now, and I say I still haven't re-inked them, and I'm still getting a good amount of colour onto my cardstock when I'm stenciling with you. So that's a really nice gauge of how well these ink pads work, actually. I hadn't thought about that before. So So it might be useful to anyone who is new to us. Lorraine, let's not all rush on at once. We don't want to crash it. No, I'm sure we'll be fine. I think Lisa's put an awful lot of work into this, and they'll be anticipating a lot of interest. Okay, so we have our card blank. I'm working with a square. I've die cut myself with the largest die from here, the scallop die, a piece of brown card, which comes from Lisa's textured cardstock. Actually, I think it sits just really nicely with this colour, and it's not too different to the burnt oak. Actually, I think it works really well. So I'm going to attach these together. Actually, what I will do, I will show you that wood grain detail in the background, because when we were stenciling it, the wood grain doesn't feature at all. But what I'll do, let me just swap the cameras and hold that up for you. You can see now that we've embossed, we have all of this lovely wood grain, and I really like the fact that it stays white. It's really that subtle detail in the background. Yeah, I think it's just so pretty. Excuse me. So we have that sitting there. We have our envelope, which again I think sits really nicely on top, and I think it would be really nice to add that with foam pads. She says looking for them. Okay, there they are. Ooh. Pick those up off the floor. Hazel will run off with those otherwise. Okay, so although we haven't embossed this envelope, I think the fact that the detail and we have the embossed detail in the background there, I don't think that matters too much actually. You could of course do this and just not stencil the envelope twice. You don't need to make this into a pocket at all. You can stencil it and emboss it and add this to the front, and again it would still look just as pretty, I think. And I'm going to add that there at an angle, so we have that little bit of dimension going on. I've already stamped a sentiment which is going to sit there. So I've stamped this actually with the Swift Dry ink, the coffee bean. So it's quite subtle. I usually like to do my sentiments in black. Oh, I've already stamped it on the back as well. And I'm going to add some foam pads onto the back of this as well. And I've chosen Wonderful Day because this I think would make a really nice birthday card, of course, but I think it would work really nicely for I don't know, a wedding or an anniversary or Mother's Day. So if you do like to make in advance and have cards just to sort of dip into, this is have a Wonderful Day is a really nice sort of generic friendly sentiment, isn't it, just to have sitting there, and works for all occasions. Okay, those small ones are really the fiddliest, aren't they? So we can have that sitting there. So I didn't actually. Oh, there we go. Let's glue that down in the centre. Okay. So, and now we have our little tab here. So let's say there's a couple of ways you really can just there's so many different things you could do with this. I really don't know what you could do. You can die cut some letters and put something on the front of there. You can stamp something. Any one of the, well, not any one of these sentiments, you know, these sentiments really look nice and fit on the tab. You can, oh dear me, sorry, I've gone all croaky now. You can score this down the centre. I mean, I've chosen to use one of the twisted rectangles, the new die set, but you could always use a tag, or you can use a little bit of card. Oh, excuse me. I need a drink. So you can always have just a little note as well. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I might have to go in a second. Go and get a drink. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you fold that in, you can always put that into the envelope as well and put your little message on there. You can perhaps die cut a little heart and put that on the front also. You can blend it, you can emboss it, you know, there's an awful lot of things to do on there. But it's, so what I really want to do is just show you and give you the option to actually create that little pocket to sit in there. It's a nice little touch, I think. So I might leave that with you there today. I'm going to go off and get myself a drink and sort my throat out. Sorry for spluttering there. It's lovely to have your company today. Good morning from Cranbrook, British Columbia, is that, BC? Hi Melita, it's lovely to have you here as well. Again, it's another name I haven't seen before, so it's nice to see all these new names. Lisa, signature stitching, yeah, you can't beat that. It just finishes off any die cut, I think, doesn't it? It really does. Lorraine, you're waiting for the die cutting machine, are you? Yes, I think we all are, to be fair. I haven't seen a picture of it yet either, so I'm really, really interested. There's lots of things. Oh, what's that about peaches? I'd like to see more peaches, Deborah. Okay, that'd be interesting. Well, I can tell you just before I go, actually, the straw hat is actually quite of a peachy colour. It's a really pale peachy colour. We also have Coral Beach as well. Rustic Coral then blends really nicely with Coral Beach. That's quite a useful colour. And we have the Almond Frosting. Tell you what I'll do just before I go. Let's get myself a piece of card to blend on. I'll just show you these colours. I'll show you Straw Hat actually, because you didn't get a true colour of that because I hadn't cleaned the stencil properly. Now, this is a very pale colour, but it's such a useful colour. Really useful actually if you like to colour or you stencil images with faces on. That's a really nice colour. So that is Straw Hat, Coral Beach and Almond Frosting. I'll just get my brushes for them. Ooh, which one's which? Almond Frosting. So we have Coral Beach here, which is a really nice peach colour. You can see that. Okay, let me just put this down and move this across for you, so hopefully you can see these. Now, Almond Frosting is different again. It's slightly more neutral, but when blended and used alongside the peachier colours, I think it really can really turn into a peach colour. There is also one more colour. Yeah, we have Early Sunrise, which looks like an orange. Well, it is an orange. But if you use this really faintly and blend this out, this can look quite peachy as well. It's a bit tricky at the moment, but if you blend this out, I don't have the big enough brush for it, but if you blend this out and forget this section here, this can look quite peachy as well. So hopefully that's useful. So they're probably the peachiest of colours that Lisa has at the moment, if that is of any use to you as well. There we are. Okay, I think what I might do, oh, hi Carol G. Right, I'll leave that with you there for today. So I've covered an awful lot. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I won't be with you on Thursday this week. I need to take Hazel for her haircut. She gets her haircut more often than I do. So that's what I'm doing this Thursday. But I'll be back with you again next week for 2 lives. If in the meantime there's anything that you want us to demo, then do let us know and we can do our best to actually bring those into the lives for you as well. Remember, Cheryl does the lives on a Monday evening as well. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed having your company, and I shall see you again next week. Take care.